People think they know what lean is. They've seen the double cup, they've heard the tracks, they've scrolled past the slowed down edits, the purple filters, and the sad trap beats. It looks pretty relaxing, but lean isn't a mood. It's a narcotic cocktail, one that's killed some of the biggest artists in the world and quickly destroyed thousands more who never got a headline. This is the story of lean, what it is, where it came from, how it spreads, and why it's still glorified even as it kills. Lean, also known as purple drink, scissor, or simply the cup, is a recreational drug mixture that typically combines codeine and promethazine cough syrup with a sweet soft drink like Sprite or Mountain Dew, often with candy like Jolly Ranchers added to enhance the taste and create a sugary, syrupy aesthetic. Despite its playful appearance and mainstream popularity in music and social media, lean is a pharmacological time bomb, a potent, sedating mixture that slows down the body's vital systems and creates physical dependence over time. The two primary ingredients in authentic lean are codeine, a mild opioid, and promethazine, a first-generation antihistamine with strong sedative properties. Codeine is structurally similar to morphine and metabolizes into morphine in the liver. It binds to mu opioid receptors in the brain, producing pain relief, euphoria, and relaxation, but also slowing down respiratory function and heart rate. Promethazine, on the other hand, is not recreational on its own, but plays a powerful supporting role. It's primarily an anti-nausea and allergy medication, but it also acts as a central nervous system depressant. When combined with codeine, promethazine intensifies the sedation, dizziness, and cognitive slowing. This is what gives lean its signature effects. The user feels deeply relaxed, limbs heavy, speech slurred, mind dissociated from the body. At the right dose, this combination can feel dreamlike. It slows the world down, dulls emotional pain, and creates a false sense of peace. But at higher or sustained doses, it becomes dangerous. Lean suppresses the body's ability to actually breathe properly, especially when the user falls asleep. The danger is subtle and accumulative. You don't need to overdose violently for lean to kill you. You can simply go to bed and never wake up. The term lean comes from one of its visible effects: the way people physically tilt or slump when under its influence. Users appear often to be nodding off in real time, their heads drooping, eyes half closed, speech dragging. In more advanced use, the body becomes visibly impaired. Some users develop an unsteady gait, slowed reflexes, and delayed speech. Regular sipping can result in stuttering, memory problems, and long-term motor control issues that persist even during sobriety. While codeine and promethazine is the original and most famous formulation, the supply of authentic prescription cough syrup has dwindled over the years due to stricter regulations and high street demand. In response, some users have turned to fake or alternative formulations, which can be even more dangerous. One common substitute is dextromethorphan, or DXM, a dissociative cough suppressant found in over-the-counter medications like Robitussin. In high doses, DXM can produce hallucinations, euphoria, and intense confusion, but it's neurologically toxic in large amounts, and it's known to cause delirium, memory loss, and violent outbursts. In other words, it is nothing like lean. Some users mix DXM with alcohol or other depressants to mimic the lean effect, often with unpredictable and dangerous results. There's also a black market trade in counterfeit codeine syrups, especially in places like the US, the UK, and parts of Africa. Some of these fakes are simply dyed liquids with sugar and sedatives. Others may contain codeine phosphate, an unscheduled variant, or even benzos like Xanax, which increases the risk of fatal respiratory depression. Some fakes are sold in reused prescription bottles with forged labels, making it nearly impossible for the average buyer to know what they're drinking. In Nigeria, for example, the lean market has grown into an underground industry worth millions, with pharmaceutical-level fakes being distributed by corrupt networks. There, addiction is widespread and rarely treated. Lean's reputation for being chill masks the harsh reality of what it does to the body over time. Chronic use is associated with a range of health issues, including dental decay, constipation, urinary retention, and liver damage, particularly because most lean mixes are loaded with high fructose soda and candy, compounding the toxic load. Many habitual users develop opioid dependence without realizing it, especially if they view lean as less serious than pills or heroin. But codeine withdrawals are real, involving cold sweats, body aches, nausea, insomnia, depression, and cravings that can last for weeks. Psychologically, the drug is even more insidious. It numbs emotion, slows cognition, and fosters dissociation. Over time, users report feeling disconnected from themselves and their environment, even when sober. The drug doesn't offer the intense euphoria of heroin or the chaotic hallucinations of LSD. Instead, it's a slow eraser, a substance that gradually removes urgency, motivation, and clarity from a person's life. That's why lean abuse can be hard to spot. People don't collapse or overdose in dramatic ways, they just fade. Even the ritual of drinking lean contributes to its danger. The double styrofoam cup, the specific soda, the candy, the slow sipping, it all becomes part of a lifestyle. For many users, especially young ones, this normalizes the drug. It stops being seen as drug use and becomes more like vibing or relaxing. And once it's aestheticized in music videos, social media, fashion, the stigma drops even further. That's part of the cultural problem. Lean doesn't look scary, it looks artistic. Because of this, lean holds a unique position in the drug world. It's a pharmaceutical mixture with street cred. It's both a prescription medication and a cultural symbol, and it's deceptively easy to start using, often promoted by people who have no idea how quickly it can turn into dependency. A person sipping casually might believe they're just catching a vibe. In reality, they're slowly teaching their brain and body to function with an opioid sedative in their bloodstream. In medical terms, codeine is considered a weak opioid, but that label can be misleading. Weak refers to its dosage compared to stronger opioids like oxycodone or fentanyl, not its safety. Because codeine is metabolized into morphine, people who metabolize it quickly, so-called ultra-rapid metabolizers, can experience much stronger effects and greater risk of overdose even at prescribed doses. This makes lean unpredictably dangerous, especially when combined with other sedating substances like alcohol, benzos, or synthetic opioids. Meanwhile, promethazine sedative effects are intensified when used recreationally. It can cause low blood pressure, dizziness, blurred vision, dry mouth, and in higher doses, hallucinations or even seizures. It also has anticholinergic properties, which can impair memory, coordination, and cognition, especially with long-term use. The synergy between codeine and promethazine makes lean feel relaxing, yes, but that same synergy is exactly what makes it life-threatening. Today, authentic promethazine with codeine syrup is hard to find without a prescription, especially in the US, where it's classified as a Schedule 5 controlled substance. Even with a prescription, it's typically reserved for severe cough and respiratory infections, and even then for short-term use only. Despite that, the black market for lean continues to thrive, propped up by counterfeit syrups, overseas imports, and a digital culture that still glorifies it. To understand how lean became a cultural icon, you have to start in Houston, Texas in the early 1990s. A city defined by its heat, its sprawl, and its underground hip-hop scene. At the center of that scene was Robert Earl Davis Jr., better known as DJ Screw. His signature sound, known as Chopped and Screwed, didn't just change the way music was produced in Houston. It mirrored the experience of being on lean. Slowed tempos, distorted vocals, and beat repetition created a woozy, hypnotic effect. It wasn't designed to get people hyped. It was made for sitting back, writing slow, and fading into a different state of mind. DJ Screw started experimenting with tape decks in the late 80s, using pitch control to pitch down southern rap tracks, and manually chopping the beats with pauses and backspins. The result was surreal. Familiar songs became syrupy and dreamlike, with the vocals dragging across the beat and entire verses repeating like looping thoughts. And this became more than just a sound, it became an altered state. And that's no coincidence. Screw and many of his close collaborators were sipping lean during the creative process, using the drug not just for recreation, but as a creative enhancer. The music and the drug became inseparable. As the underground movement grew, so did the mythology around it. DJ Screw wasn't just remixing songs now. He was creating full-length screw tapes, often custom-made for friends or local MCs. The lean itself was relatively easy to get in the early 90s. Texas pharmacies stocked it commonly for coughs, and the syrup could be prescribed for minor colds or bronchitis at the time. It wasn't heavily policed, and the concept of abuse was barely on the radar yet. Most users mixed it with Sprite or Big Red, poured it into a styrofoam cup, and carried it around like an accessory. The double cup became part of the look, not just for style, but for function. One cup inside another to prevent the syrupy mix from sweating through the foam. As chopped and screwed tapes spread beyond Houston, lean went with them. People outside Texas weren't just discovering a new sound, they were getting a window into a culture that was deeply regional, specific, and chemically altered. The influence extended beyond music. It shaped fashion, it shaped language, and it shaped identity. DJ Screw really was that movement's nucleus. He never signed a major label deal, but his influence was unmatched in the South. Tragically, DJ Screw's life and legacy were cut short when he died in November 2000 at just 29 years old. His autopsy revealed a lethal mix of codeine, Valium, and PCP in his system. The cause of death was listed as a drug overdose. But that sound didn't die. After Screw's death, chopped and screwed music exploded in popularity. Mainstream artists from outside Texas began incorporating slowed mixes, and mixtape DJs across the country started copying the style. At the same time, lean started appearing in more music videos, lyrics, and interviews. What had once been a Houston underground phenomenon was now becoming a national aesthetic. Also, RIP Screw. After DJ Screw's death in 2000, lean didn't disappear, it transformed. What started as a hyper-local underground ritual in Houston became a mainstream symbol of rap culture. In the early 2000s, national artists began referencing the drink directly in his lyrics and visuals. One of the earliest and most influential groups to push lean into public view was 3 6 Mafia out of Memphis. Songs like Sippin' on Some Syrup from 2000 openly celebrated the ritual of mixing codeine with soda, complete with shoutouts to Purple Drink, Double Cups, and Southern Slang. The music video featured slow camera pan, stylized cups, and a laid-back vibe that matched the drug's effects. For many listeners outside the South, this was their first exposure to the look, sound, and culture of lean. Around that same time, Lil Wayne became the genre's most visible and persistent lean user. His influence can't be overstated. In interviews, mixtapes, and lyrics, Wayne made sipping codeine look not just normal but essential, part of his daily life, his creative process, even his identity. He called it his medicine, described it as inspiration, and made double cups a permanent fixture in his public image. This was also around his 2008 Carter III era, when he was arguably the biggest rapper on earth. But, I mean, not literally biggest, because that would have to go to Dave Blunt's. As rap culture evolved in the late 2000s, Soulja Boy and others brought lean into the internet age, blending it with viral dances, YouTube visuals, and ringtone-era beats. While the lyrical content stayed simple, the aesthetic started to shift. People started posting pictures of their setups, with styrofoam cups, grape Fanta, cough syrup bottles blurred out. By the time the 2010s hit, lean was fully embedded in mainstream hip-hop, but the tone had changed, where DJ Screw's era was slow and mournful, and Lil Wayne's was manic and celebratory. The new wave, artists like Future, Travis Scott, and Chief Keef, brought a darker, colder tone. The music was drenched in autotune, pain, and nihilism. Future's Dirty Sprite 2, which is, oh my god, one of the best albums ever, wasn't just an album, it was a mission statement. Songs like Thought It Was a Drought framed lean not as a party favor, but as a shield against emotional collapse. It wasn't fun anymore, it was necessary. Travis Scott took the aesthetic even further. His visuals were surreal and psychedelic. His sound layered and heavy, his lyrics laced with casual mentions of codeine, benzos, and mixing substances. And I have to go on a personal rant here. This might be kind of, a little tangent, but I have to talk about the song Codeine Crazy. Codeine Crazy isn't about being high. It's a song about being lost. This is Future at his rawest, caught between luxury and self-destruction. The track isn't flexing for the camera, it's unraveling in real time. From the opening lines, he's already deep in it. He's saying, pour that bubbly, drink that muddy. It's not a party, it's a ritual. He's sipping not to feel good, he's sipping to survive. The production by 808 Mafia is hypnotic, slow, repetitive, slightly menacing, like being trapped in your own mind with nowhere to go but deeper. Future's voice slurs, stretches, and doubles back on itself. He's barely holding the beat, like he's floating above it, which mirrors the dissociation that lean causes. It's not an accident, the entire song feels like being on codeine. Lyrically, the song walks a line between wealth and numbness, sex and grief, violence and vulnerability. He talks about Audemars watches, Saint Tropez, and models, but none of it sounds happy. It sounds compulsive, hollow. He's not boasting, he's coping. As it builds, the verses get darker. He talks about seizures, legal cases, paranoia, betrayal, and watching other legends get killed. There's an awareness in this song that Future doesn't always show. He knows he's not okay. He knows this can't last. He literally says in the song, I'm an addict and I can't even hide it. And it's not followed by a punchline or anything. It's just there, raw, admitted, resigned. But what makes Codeine Crazy so powerful is that it's not a warning. It's not a redemption arc. It's not even a cry for help. It's a snapshot, a moment frozen in time. It's Future caught mid-collapse, clutching money, models, and drugs with both hands, but he knows that it's all slipping away. There's no solution here, it's just honesty. And for me, this song really is the emotional center of lean culture. Now, at the same time as this, lean was exploding in online subcultures. The SoundCloud scene of the mid-2010s, artists like Lil Peep, Lil Uzi Vert, and XXXTentacion, was filled with references to syrup, pills, and emotional numbness. But I feel like I'm ranting a little bit too much about the history, so let's move on into some scientific stuff about lean. Lean's deceptively mild reputation hides a very real, very lethal pharmacological truth. The combination of codeine and promethazine isn't just sedating, it works on multiple critical systems in the body simultaneously, and when the dose crosses a certain line, even slightly, the results can be fatal. This section is not about how lean feels, it's about how it shuts down your body from the inside out. Let's start with codeine. While it's labeled a weak opioid, again, that's a reference to the dosing, not danger. Once ingested, codeine undergoes its hepatic metabolism in the liver, where enzymes convert it into morphine. Once morphine is active in the bloodstream, it binds to mu opioid receptors in the brain and spinal cord, depressing the central nervous system. This slows breathing, heart rate, digestion, and neural activity. In low doses, the effect is relaxing. In high doses, it paralyzes the body's drive to breathe, especially during sleep. This is what makes codeine so dangerous when used chronically or in combination with other sedatives. The brain literally forgets to breathe. Promethazine, the second ingredient in lean, is often overlooked, but it's just as dangerous in context. It's a first-generation antihistamine, which, by the way, also is Benadryl, which means that it crosses the blood-brain barrier easily and has strong anticholinergic effects and dopaminergic blocking properties. It acts on histamine H1 receptors, dulling allergic responses, but it also binds to muscarinic receptors, which slows neurological activity and impairs coordination, memory, and perception. In therapeutic doses, it causes drowsiness. In recreational or high doses, it creates disorientation, low blood pressure, and respiratory depression, especially when paired with opioids. It's the synergy, codeine suppresses breathing, promethazine prevents the brain from responding to low oxygen, that makes lean so lethal during sleep. The half-life of codeine is roughly 3 hours, but the half-life of morphine can stretch up to 4 to 6 hours depending on dose and liver efficiency. Promethazine lingers even longer, 10 to 19 hours, meaning a nighttime dose can still impair respiration well into the next day. The risk increases exponentially when combined with other depressants, especially alcohol, benzos, or barbiturates. These compounds work on GABA receptors, adding a third layer of respiratory suppression. In toxicology reports of lean-related deaths, it's common to find at least one of these drugs in the system. One case or one real-world example was Fredo Santana, whose lean addiction led to liver and kidney failure, frequent seizures, and ultimately heart failure in 2018, sadly. He had been using lean for years and suffered from chronic withdrawal, which he described as hell in interviews. His death wasn't from a single overdose, but from the cumulative organ damage lean causes over time. That's an important distinction. Lean doesn't always kill with one dose, sometimes it grinds you down until your organs simply give up. From a medical perspective, chronic use of lean affects nearly every system. Liver damage results from both the metabolism of codeine and the toxic sugar load of the soda and syrup it's mixed with. Promethazine is hepatotoxic in high doses, and many cough syrups also contain acetaminophen, which, holy shit, is so bad for your liver. Over time, users can develop hepatic steatosis, fatty liver, fibrosis, or full-blown cirrhosis. In the mouth, high-sugar mixtures combined with dry mouth, a side effect of promethazine, lead to tooth decay and gum disease. Frequent sippers often report syrup mouth, which is a mix of cavities, bad breath, and enamel erosion. Combine that with poor hygiene during intoxication, and it's common for long-term users to lose teeth entirely. Neurologically, lean reduces motor coordination and slows speech over time. Many heavy users develop a permanent slur or drawl even while sober, a consequence of both cerebral depression and opioid-induced neuroplastic changes. Cognition also suffers. Long-term users show signs of executive dysfunction, poor memory, and emotional blunting. It's not just that they're slow when they're high, lean literally retrains the brain to function differently. In the ER, doctors treating lean overdose focus first on airway protection and naloxone administration. Naloxone, or Narcan, is an opioid antagonist that reverses the effects of codeine and morphine almost instantly. But it has no effect on promethazine, meaning that patients may remain heavily sedated, unresponsive, or at risk of aspiration even after the opioid is blocked. In mixed drug overdoses, this makes treatment more complex and outcomes less predictable. Fatal dosages vary. A typical therapeutic dose of codeine is 15 to 30 milligrams every 4 to 6 hours. Overdoses can occur at as low as 200 or 240 milligrams, depending on body weight and other factors. Promethazine is therapeutic at 12.5 to 25 milligrams. Fatal doses have been reported with just 500 milligrams in sensitive individuals, far less than the total amount consumed in some recreational lean batches. The real danger with lean isn't just one big overdose, it's accumulation. Unlike fast-acting stimulants or one-shot pills, lean is usually consumed over hours. A user might drink 1 cup, then top it off, sip again, fall asleep. The dosage builds up in the bloodstream while the person is unaware. The body shuts down silently, especially during non-REM sleep, when breathing naturally slows. If the blood CO2 rises too deep and the brain is too sedated to notice, you just stop breathing. That is scary as fuck. Lean addiction doesn't begin with chaos. It begins with calm. Unlike harder drugs that shock the system into dependence, lean slips into a person's life through routine. At first, it's just a way to relax, to unwind at the end of the night, or to catch a feeling of detachment. But over time, the body adapts. With each dose, the brain lowers its baseline production of dopamine and endorphins. What once felt like a high begins to feel like balance, and when it's taken away, everything beneath that surface comes crashing through. Codeine is an opioid, and like all opioids, it rewires the brain's ability to regulate pleasure, stress, and pain. Long-term use of lean builds physical tolerance, not only to the euphoric effects, but to basic functioning. When the drug is removed, the body reacts with withdrawal, which is its way of trying to restore equilibrium after prolonged suppression. Promethazine, though not an opioid, deepens the dependency by creating its own just rebound effects, like mental fog, mood instability, and hypersensitivity. The two drugs in combination make a withdrawal from lean a complex and layered crash, affecting both the nervous system and the emotional state. And this whole section, guys, by the way, is why, for me personally, I will never, ever try a drug that has this amount of actual, withdrawal symptoms and dependency. Anyway, this process typically begins within the first day after quitting. Most users describe an onset of restlessness and an inability to sleep, even when exhausted. As the hours pass, the symptoms intensify. Physical discomfort spreads across the body. Aching muscles, sharp cramps, tight joints. The stomach turns fragile, often leading to nausea or diarrhea. Thermoregulation becomes unstable. A person may shiver, sweat through their clothes, then feel overheated minutes later. The nervous system begins firing uncontrollably, yawning, twitching, vibrating internally, all signs of the body readjusting to a lack of sedation. Emotionally, the experience is often worse. Without the opioid's dulling effect, every thought feels sharper, more intrusive. Anxiety rises alongside other depressive symptoms often that make basic motivation feel impossible. Many report feeling detached from their surroundings, unable to find pleasure in anything, unable to eat or speak normally. The cravings aren't just for the drug itself, they're from relief from the weight of existing without it. Compared to heroin, withdrawal from lean can seem milder in its acute phase. There are fewer cases of vomiting or full physical collapse, but the emotional drag is often longer. The presence of promethazine, with its longer half-life and dissociative effects, seems to extend the withdrawal window. Instead of crashing hard and recovering fast, lean users tend to plateau in a prolonged low, not violently sick, but drained, emotionally blank, and mentally frayed. Some describe this as a kind of gray zone, not in agony but depressed and unable to feel anything else. In contrast to benzos, withdrawal from lean is less physically dangerous. It won't trigger seizures or death from cessation alone, but it shares one of the most dangerous qualities of benzo withdrawal. It convinces users they aren't addicted until they stop. The tolerance creeps in so gradually, and the substance is consumed in such casual rituals that many users genuinely believe they can quit anytime until they try. By then, the body has learned to need the substance in order to relax, sleep, and even focus. Because lean is sipped slowly and often consumed in social or creative settings, the attachment goes beyond chemistry. The double cup, the flavor, the sound of slowed music, all of it becomes part of the mental ritual. This makes withdrawal as much a psychological battle as a physical one. Even after the worst symptoms fade, many users find themselves triggered by familiar visuals, sounds, or environments. Emotional cravings can linger for weeks. The sense of boredom or emptiness after quitting is not just a reflection of reality. It's the brain readjusting to a world without that constant suppression. And the danger is not in the pain of withdrawal, or not just at least, but it's in how easily that withdrawal pushes people back into use. Most lean users don't relapse for a high, they relapse because they're tired of feeling hollow. Recovery is possible, but it takes more than just time. Addiction to lean is rarely treated with urgency by the medical system. It doesn't carry the same visibility as pill addiction or injection-based opioid use, but it follows the same pattern: tolerance, dependence, withdrawal, relapse. And for those who stay in it too long, the exit ramp only gets harder to reach. Capitalism has a way of reframing self-destruction as authenticity. Lean doesn't just make you slow, it makes you sad, real, broken, mysterious. That's the persona that sells. Influencers emulate the look, artists mimic the tone, and the language of addiction becomes a marketing pitch. The emptiness, the hopelessness, the nodding off on camera, it all gets reinterpreted as aesthetic, as mood. Meanwhile, the actual consequences get buried under stylized tributes and purple-drenched fan edits. But I want to say right here that I don't want this to sound at all like I'm critiquing or criticizing people who drink lean or the awful cases of death because of it. It's part of a culture for sure, and I don't want to take away from that or criticize that at all. I'm just here to talk about the science-based reality of it and to warn people, you know? The world is the way it is and things are dangerous, and I just think it's interesting, and I obviously love the culture. This video is informative and educational, and I'm not trying to make any kind of point other than a warning that, you know, maybe you shouldn't do a drug that makes you physically dependent on it and then makes you literally depressed if you ever stop. Anyway, the most disturbing part isn't that lean kills, it's that people are making money off of that fact. The cycle is self-reinforcing. Sip, post, crash, tribute, profit. It looks chill until it doesn't, and even then it looks chill in hindsight. Death only adds to the mystique. Lean looks soft. It looks slow. It looks beautiful. The double cup, the purple tint, the sleepy beats. Everything about it feels harmless. But the aesthetic isn't safety. The calm it creates is chemical. The vibe is a sedative, and the cost for a lot of people is their body, their mind, or their life. This isn't just about addiction, it's about how we package self-destruction and sell it as mood, how we turn real deaths into merch drops, how numbness gets romanticized and pain becomes profitable. DJ Screw is gone, Pimp C is gone, Fredo's gone, Juice is gone, and I know he wasn't killed by lean, but I mean, countless others are gone, and still, the cup still keeps getting refilled. My advice, just listen to Future and feel like a badass, but don't try it yourself. Lean isn't chill. Lean is death that moves slowly, and for some people, by the time they realize that, they've already slipped under. Thanks for watching, everyone. Good night and sweet dreams.